Let's talk about the history of warfare, but maybe not in the way you think. We're not just going to look at weapons. We're going to look at something much, much more powerful, the invisible force that has shaped every single battle in history.
So let me just ask you a question. When you picture the most powerful weapon ever made, what pops into your head? Is it a sword, a tank, maybe a nuclear bomb? Well, the real answer might surprise you. It's not something you can hold at all.
That's right, an idea. A single, powerful idea can defeat armies, bring down empires, and completely redraw the map of the world. Today, we're diving into the evolution of those game-changing ideas. This is the history of military thought.
So, what do we actually mean by military thought? Well, think of it like the playbook for war. It's the collection of big ideas, philosophies, and strategies that dictate how wars are fought and, more importantly, how they're won. It's the why and the how behind all the fighting.
All right, so where do we even begin? We've got to go way, way back to the ancient world. This is where two totally different ways of thinking set the stage for pretty much all military strategy to come. You could almost call it a battle of intellect versus brute force.
What's so cool about this slide is the contrast. On one hand, you've got Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War. His whole philosophy was about being smart, using intelligence, deception, and psychology. For him, the best victory was one where you didn't even have to fight. And then on the other hand, you have the Romans, perfected by guys like Julius Caesar. Their approach was all about raw power, iron discipline, incredible engineering, and a logistics machine that just would not quit. They were all about winning that one decisive battle and then expanding. You know, these two mindsets, the clever, indirect approach versus the overwhelming, direct one, they're still clashing today, everywhere from the battlefield to the boardroom.
So for centuries, these ancient ideas pretty much ruled the day. Armies fought, but the core strategies didn't change all that much. So what on earth could come along and completely upend a system built around giant stone castles and knights in shining armor?
Think about it. For 1,000 years, the medieval battlefield was a pretty straightforward, if brutal, place. Your power was measured by the thunderous charge of your knights and the thickness of your castle walls. War was all about these long, painful sieges and clashing feudal armies. This is just how things were done. Until this. Gunpowder. This single invention didn't just change the rules. It basically took the entire rulebook and set it on fire. All of a sudden, that impenetrable stone castle, not so impenetrable anymore. And that knight in his expensive armor, well, he was suddenly very, very vulnerable.
And you have to understand, this started a domino effect. Cannons made castle walls a joke. Firearms made knights obsolete. And to manage this new, more complicated type of war, you couldn't just rely on part-time feudal soldiers anymore. You needed professional, full-time armies loyal to a nation, not just a local lord. The modern state was literally born from the smoke of a cannon.
Okay, on to the next massive leap. So, gunpowder gives us these new national armies. But what happens when you give those armies the awesome power of the Industrial Revolution? Well, you get a completely new and frankly terrifying concept in military thought.
And the guy who really defined this new era was Karl von Clausewitz. This quote right here is his most famous. What he was saying is that war isn't just random, chaotic violence. It's a tool. It's a rational instrument used by a country to achieve its political goals. It's politics, just with fighting.
This brings us to his most important idea: total war. He argued that modern wars weren't just fought by soldiers anymore. No, they were fought by entire nations. Your whole economy, your factories, the morale of your people back home, all of it was now part of the battlefield. War became a national project. And when you combine that theory of total war with industrial technology, the result is absolutely horrifying. Suddenly you have railways moving millions of soldiers, machine guns creating the brutal stalemate of trench warfare, and eventually tanks and aircraft designed to break that stalemate. The result? The unbelievable global-scale destruction of World War I and World War II.
So let's quickly break down one of the most famous tactics of this era, Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. The whole idea was to avoid getting bogged down like in World War I. So, first, you concentrate all your tanks and planes on one tiny little spot. Second, you punch a hole right through the enemy's defenses. And third, your infantry just pours through that gap, creating total chaos behind enemy lines until their whole army collapses from the inside out.
After the industrial-scale slaughter of the World Wars, military thinking had to change, yet again. The new battlefield wasn't going to be about massive armies crashing into each other anymore. It was going to be defined by something completely different.
And this is where thinkers like Mao Zedong step in. He basically perfected the modern playbook for asymmetric or guerrilla warfare. The question was, how does a smaller, weaker force beat a superpower? Well, you don't play their game. You use small, mobile groups, you hide among the population, you use hit-and-run tactics, and you never, ever get into a big, head-on battle that you know you can't win. The goal isn't to destroy the enemy's army. It's to destroy their will to keep fighting.
And that way of thinking brings us right up to today, because the old idea of a clear front line, a line on a map separating our side from their side, that's pretty much a thing of the past. The modern battlefield is everywhere.
It's in the digital world. I mean, cyber warfare isn't some sci-fi fantasy anymore. It's happening right now. It's a constant battle involving attacks on power grids, financial systems, and all the networks that our societies depend on.
It's being fought from the sky by unmanned machines. Drones have completely changed the calculation of risk, right? They allow for these surgical strikes and 24/7 surveillance, all operated from a control room that could be thousands of miles away from the danger.
It's a battle for our hearts and minds. Information warfare uses social media, disinformation, and propaganda to create confusion, undermine trust, and control the story. The battlefield is literally in our pockets, on our phones and computer screens.
And looking just over the horizon, you've got the rise of artificial intelligence. This is the next great frontier, where algorithms might one day make life and death decisions on the battlefield, faster than any human possibly could. And that raises a whole new set of massive strategic and ethical questions.
So, from Sun Tzu's psychological tricks to the industrial might of total war, and now to this borderless digital battlefield, the way we think about conflict just keeps evolving. Which brings us back to the main point. The next great weapon won't be made of steel or silicon. It's going to be an idea. The only question is, what will it be?